I'm joined now live from Fort Lauderdale, Florida by Seth Kaplan. He's editor of Airline Weekly. Seth, you convinced that their conclusion is accurate?
Well, to the extent that, yes, they've vastly narrowed the search field. You know, we're talking tonight about finally knowing literally what part of the world this plane crashed after nearly 2.5 weeks. And yes, they've done the math. To be clear, they're not using technology that's really designed for this. They're doing old-fashioned mathematics, geometry based on signals that were really supposed to be for other things. But yeah, they've filled in enough data points that they know what they're looking at, very broadly speaking, at least.
And Seth, there's a lot being made now about the course of this plane. By all accounts, it went off course on its way to Beijing. Is there anything technically that may have caused the plane to veer that far off course, or does this look more and more like it was human intervention, do you think?
Well, it certainly looks more and more like that. Certainly, there would be precedent for an airplane flying many hours without anybody controlling it. Oh, about 15 years ago, there was the famous golfer, Payne Stewart, who died tragically aboard a Learjet when everybody aboard lost consciousness because the cabin lost pressure, and the plane flew for another 4 hours before crashing in a field. So that's happened. But at this point, we just have so much information that suggests that somebody was trying to cut off contact. We see this sharp turn that the plane seems to have made and so forth. And the most likely scenario is that, yes, that there was human intervention, which could mean a hijacking or it could mean a pilot. And for me, it starts with people with easy access to the cockpit, which could mean one but not both pilots. But that's certainly far from certain.
Seth, I want to ask you about wreckage, but before I do, you're the editor of Airline Weekly. I want to ask you about the community. This is fascinating. This story is fascinating to everyone. But I want to ask people in your community, someone like yourself, what fascinates you the most about this?
Well, the fact that so much time has gone on, and as I said a moment ago, we're literally just beginning to know what part of the world this plane crashed. I mean, for perspective, 5 years ago, we were really mesmerized by Air France 447, which tragically crashed off Brazil. And we thought, how could it be that we can't find this aircraft? And that was an airplane that, we knew a lot more about what had happened. We knew it had flown into bad weather. It had been sending distress signals. So there's really little precedent for this. And the thing that's most mysterious, I said a minute ago, just the starting point is, okay, who has easy access to the cockpit? That would be pilots. And we've had a few incidents over the years where one pilot locks another out of the cockpit and crashes an aircraft. But in those incidents, Egypt Air Flight 990, for example, back in 1999, the pilot who does that crashes the plane rather quickly. Why would somebody on a murder-suicide mission continue flying the plane for so many more hours, as appears to have been the case here? So every time you think you're close to a conclusion or at least a reasonable explanation, there's something like that that throws you off.
Okay, Seth, you brought it up. I think everybody else kind of is in agreement. When it comes to the wreckage, given all these satellites, ships, planes, this world that we live in where you can Skype with somebody half a world away, everyone's kind of like, how is it possible the plane hasn't been found yet? So you'd say in your community, people were asking the same question?
Yeah, and it starts with the fact that we're dealing with somebody here who apparently was trying not to be seen. Really, that same crash I mentioned a minute ago, Air France 447, took 2 years to find that aircraft, even though you had somebody who was certainly happy to let everybody know he was in trouble. We knew more or less where that plane went down. There was debris floating 2 days after, unfortunately, human bodies as well. So we really had so much more information, and yet it took 2 years to find the debris field at the bottom of the ocean. So if you project out from that, that tells you that it could be a long time before we find this aircraft.
Seth Kaplan joining us from the state of Florida here in the United States. Thanks so much.